In 1940, Friedel Dicker Brandeis wrote to a friend, "I remember thinking in school how I would grow up and would protect my students from unpleasant impressions, from uncertainty, from scary learning. Today, only one thing seems important: to rouse the desire toward creative work, to make it a habit, and to teach how to overcome difficulties that are insignificant in comparison to the goal to which you are striving." Dicker Brandeis was Jewish and a trained artist. She wrote that to her friend while hiding from the Nazis. 2 years later, though, the Nazis captured her and put her into a concentration camp. There, she could not protect the children in the camp with her from unpleasantness and uncertainty, but she did rouse the desire toward creative work. She created art. She taught the children in the concentration camp with her about creating art. Friedel Dicker Brandeis did not survive the concentration camp. The Germans put her to death in 1944. However, several of the children did eventually survive the camp, and later as adults testified that the creative pursuit she taught them was a large part of how they were able to cope with their situation and eventually survive. Her artwork and that of the children in which she roused a desire toward creativity still gets displayed in shows at museums today. Now, I want to stress that as difficult as what we're experiencing and witnessing with the COVID-19 virus, as isolating as having to mostly shelter in place can feel, it doesn't equate with what it must have been like for people who got placed into those camps, the horror of the Holocaust. But I do think that from these and other similar stories from that time, we can take a lesson about how engaging our creativity can help us when we're living through painful and difficult circumstances. Strangely, though, there's this paradox about engaging our creativity during times of pain, anxiety, and stress. On the one hand, when we are emotionally wounded, it can serve to obstruct our creativity. Our attention spans get shorter. We can have trouble with poor short-term memory. It can be hard to concentrate. All of the above for me these days. And yet, the obstruction can also serve as a motivation for different ways of engaging our creativity. It might even be a source from which new forms of creativity arise. Here's a couple of examples from things that have come up in my own life. I have found that when I write sermons, or for that matter, anything else these days, I have to start earlier in the week and write in much shorter bursts than I did before. I have to take a lot more breaks from the writing. Yet sometimes it is in those breaks that new ideas and concepts emerge. Here's another example. Meditation, particularly walking or hiking meditation, has been one of my strongest and favorite spiritual practices and sources of creative thought. These days, though, I'm finding it very difficult to get into a meditative state. My mind races too much. Plus, it's been a little hot outside for going on a meditative hike. Recently, though, I got to thinking about how much I have loved it when I got to go on trips up into mountainous areas. For me, the mountains are where I find nature to be the most beautiful. It's where I find a calmness unlike anywhere else. So, rather than try to meditate directly, I have started sitting very still for a few minutes, closing my eyes and remembering visuals from trips I have made to the mountains or imagining new such trips. It elevates my mood. It's very calming. Now, on an even broader basis, people are finding amazingly creative ways of, for instance, presenting entire theatrical productions over Zoom with each actor in their own home, often fully costumed. People, including our own wonderful music folks here at the church, are doing exactly the same with music. So consider asking yourself, what creative endeavors might you want to pursue during this challenging time? Jason Silva, internet and television personality, filmmaker, and philosopher, says of creativity, "We can take our wounds and turn them into something larger." Now, interestingly, though, many Eastern philosophies, such as Buddhism, believe our creativity arises most when we're in balance, when we are emotionally calm. I think it's possible that both circumstances might be true. Some of you have probably heard me talk about process theology before, which I think would suggest that both can be true. For process philosophy or theology, neither you or I or any other thing that exists in our universe is a static object. We are always changing. We are always a process of becoming. We are always emerging as something new. Even while you've been listening to this service, even during the time those of us who made videos for it, all of us changed in each of those moments. So from this perspective, every new moment offers the potential for creative choices and actions. Now, for process philosophy, it is just the randomness of the universe that offers us these creative and life-giving choices. For process theology, it is God or the divine that lures us toward more creative and life-giving choices, and then, for all eternity, holds, contains each moment of our becoming through us making such choices. And I think even while we can't be together in person as a church, this religious community is still becoming, still finding creative ways to stay connected with one another. Folks are making informal connections with each other and keeping up by phone and other means. We're keeping these online services going, and there are a flood of comments with one another on Facebook as the services proceed. Our senior minister, Meg, is putting together our quilt project and has set us up to be able to make donations that will help retire people's debt. You can learn more about those projects in the online weekly newsletter or at www.austinuu.org. We're doing lots and lots of virtual meetings, and we're exploring even more creative ways we might try to provide opportunities for connection and relationship. One of our wonderful church and board of trustee members, Rob Hirschfeld, has several creative ideas about how we might stay connected and keep becoming as a religious community. He'll be talking with Meg about these ideas after she gets back from her vacation and study leave. There are two ideas that he came up with that people could do on their own now, though. One is to set up group text and emails, which I think some folks are already probably doing, but we'll be sending out the church membership contact list within a few days, so those groups might grow, or new groups could get set up. Another of Rob's ideas is that folks might set up a group cell phone call while they each hike or take a walk at the same time, but in different locations, and just tell each other their stories as they go. I think we are looking for and starting to find creative ways to connect with each other, not just intellectually, but heart to heart. Earlier this week, I was in an online meeting with our bookkeeper with the church's accounting firm. I shared with her that I was writing this sermon about finding creativity and hopefully benefiting from doing so in this challenging time. She, in turn, shared with me that she is pregnant and due in August. Not surprisingly, she's excited, but also scared about having a child while the virus is still so rampant. She also shared and gave me permission to share with you all that each night she has started doing what she calls maternity drawings in art about her soon-to-be-born baby, along with her hopes and wishes for that child. Now, after that, we had to move on for a bit to talking about the accounting items, but at the end of the meeting, she paused and said, "What I want you to know about engaging my creativity is that it took me out of my head and back into my heart." Wow, I thought, I need to find more ways to get creative and get out of my worried head and back into my heart more often. So that's how it came to pass that your church bookkeeper became spiritual coach to one of your church ministers. And praise be for that.